Thank you very much, Hans Werner. It's a great pleasure to be here. This annual lecture was launched to commemorate the enormous contribution made by the late Richard Musgrave to the discipline of public finance. It's appropriate to celebrate his achievements at the University of Munich, where he first studied, and where his work has made a lasting impact. It was 10 years ago when we were gathered here in this room to honor his 90th birthday, coincidentally with the 10th anniversary of the founding of the Center for Economic Studies. That conference and its published volume were aptly titled Public Finance and Public Policy in the New Century. This would have been the 100th year of Richard Musgrave's birth, and it's fitting to mark this special occasion with a presentation by an outstanding public economic scholar in the Musgrave tradition, Tim Besley. Interestingly, it's not the first time that Tim's work has recalled the name of Richard Musgrave. In 2000, he was the first winner of the Richard Musgrave Prize for the best paper published in the National Tax Journal, the first of many awards that Tim has received for his work. Richard Musgrave defined the study of public finance for my generation of scholars. He showed the strengths and limitations of the government as an institution for achieving good social outcomes, for addressing the micro and macroeconomic failures of the market, and for achieving fair and equitable outcomes, while not losing sight of the fact that ultimately the purpose of collective decisions was to serve individuals in the society. He taught us that parsimonious modeling, backed up by the facts, was a scientifically sound way to proceed. He also emphasized the importance of institutions and of working towards a social consensus as a basis for the legitimacy of government. Tim Besley is one of a small group of scholars who have defined public economics for the next generation, with the same values and insights that characterized Richard Musgrave's work. His work is very much in the Musgrave tradition, albeit incorporating the many advances in economic analysis that have permeated our discipline, such as information constraints, game theory, and the importance of sequential decision-making. Perhaps most significantly, he has been at the forefront of research on integrating political economy considerations into the analysis of policy, particularly emphasizing the role that political institutions play in fostering good outcomes and good politicians. Tim is a public economic theorist and practitioner in the broadest sense of the term. He's applied public economic analysis to a wide variety of areas, always with a policy interest in mind. A short list would include the following: optimal health insurance programs, poverty alleviation programs, including the targeting of transfers, workfare, and publicly provided private goods, optimal commodity tax design, the provision of credit in developing countries, fiscal federalism, corporate social responsibility, public goods provision, and incentives in the public sector. Two central focuses of his work are particularly worth noting. One is the broad emphasis on designing and improving policies for developing countries so as to overcome some of the serious institutional problems that those countries face in raising revenue, delivering public services, and especially alleviating poverty. Tim is one of a distinguished group of economists who have brought public economic analytical techniques to bear on problems of development. But for many of us in the audience, Tim is best known for his voluminous work on political economy, especially in recent years. He and his various co-authors have produced a number of papers containing seminal ideas that have heavily influenced the development of that literature. One of these is the idea of yardstick competition, whereby state voters are able to judge their politicians' behavior by observing fiscal outcomes in neighboring states. This was something to which the literature on fiscal federalism always paid vague lip service, but whose mechanism had not been really appreciated until Tim's work. Another is the so-called citizen candidate model, which pursued the logic of politicians not being able to commit to policies once elected in order to endogenize the choice of political candidates. This model has been a key building block in recent developments of political economy. Finally, Tim's work has emphasized the role of political processes for selecting good politicians and weeding out bad ones. An underlying theme of Tim's work in political economy is that political outcomes can be as good as the political institutions that underlie them. Normative analysis can then be interpreted as a search for better institutions. Not surprisingly, Tim has been honored in various ways by the profession and by society at large, including some of the most prestigious awards. I would mention in particular his being named a Fellow of the Econometric Society, of the British Academy, and of the European Economics Association. His being a foreign honorary member of the American Economic Association. His being given the Yrjö Jahnsson Award, sorry for that Yucca pronunciation, and the John von Neumann Award. Of particular interest to me as a citizen of a country that was and maybe still is part of the British Empire is his designation as a commander of the Order of the British Empire, to which Hans Werner has already alluded. However, these honors, I think, do not really capture the breadth of his contributions to economics and public policy. Tim has devoted a great deal of his time to the development of the profession of public economics and policymaking in a number of capacities. He has edited two major journals, the American Economic Review and the Economic Journal. He has given countless invited lectures and series of lectures, including the Lindahl Lectures, the Schumpeter Lecture, the Keynes Lecture, the Walras-Boley Lecture, the Kuznets Lectures, and so on. He has also participated in various public economics workshops, including Public Economics UK, which he helped to found. I know from his contribution to the Canadian Public Economic Study Group that he freely gives of his time and provides very valuable feedback and advice to younger scholars in these venues. Finally, Tim has become heavily involved in putting public economic policy analysis into action. Among the ways he has recently done so are as a member of the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of England and as a member of the Murley's Review Committee on Taxation. The Murley's Review represents an outstanding milestone in the application of current theoretical and empirical public economic research to the design of a tax system for the 21st century. I have no doubt that Tim's contribution to the review was central. The end result is a blueprint for tax reform that Richard Musgrave would have highly praised, despite the fact that it represents a philosophy that has evolved considerably from Musgrave's preferred comprehensive income tax. Indeed, the Murley's Review is much more in the spirit of progressive consumption taxation that was championed by the late David Bradford, whose attachment to CESifo was cherished. All this is to say that Tim Besley is a most appropriate choice as a person to honor the memory of Richard Musgrave, and it is an honor for me to laud him as the 2011 Richard Musgrave Lecturer to tell us about some principles of public organization.
Okay, done. Now I think you can get the prize right now. I was a little bit insecure about the procedure because we also have music, but that comes obviously after it. No? Okay, so this is the Richard Musgrave Visiting Professorship 2011. It is awarded jointly by the CESifo Group and the International Institute of Public Finance to Timothy Besley, who will deliver the Richard Musgrave Lecture on some principles of public organization. Okay, congratulations.